Let's talk about using readers as a classroom novel in your world language class. Hey, it's Ashley, aka Señorita Spanish, where I provide easy-to-use resources to save you time and energy while you're lesson planning. If you're new here, I just want to make sure that you know that links to everything that I mentioned in this video will be down in the description box below. In this series of videos, we've been talking about using readers with our students. We started talking about FVR, then we looked at top recommendations for books for each levels of your classes, and today we're going to talk about using readers as a whole class novel in your classes. And we have a special guest who is an expert at using novels in her classes, Allison from Mis Clases Locas. I have personally never taught a novel as a whole class. It just didn't fit into my curriculum. So I was thrilled when I reached out to Allison and she was willing to come and share her expertise with us. She's going to answer our top asked questions about using readers in class and then share some resources for where we can get more help if we need it.
Hello, I am Allison Meanholt, and you may know me as Mis Clases Locas, and I have a decade of experience as a Department of One secondary Spanish teacher, teaching everything from grade 7 through grades 12. And I have been using full class readers, novels, comprehensible input-based books in my classroom since 2015.
How many novels do you do in a year with each level?
As to how many novels that I've done in a year, that really has depended on the year, the curriculum, the students. I have always been able to, as my own department, I ideally like to do a anchor novel each quarter, so 4 books in a normal school year, but I know that varies a lot depending on what other units, other curriculum you're wanting to use in there, what other things you have to do.
How long do you spend on a novel, and how do you know it's the Goldilocks pace? Like, not too slow, not too fast. How do you get a feel for pacing a novel?
In regards to how long to spend on a novel, I really like doing novels in a very short amount of time. I would not spend more than 2 weeks reading a novel, and I'm talking about just reading. I have even front-loaded the vocabulary, done a lot of pre-activities, and the actual novel, we have read the entire novel in 1 week. I think that that's one of the biggest problems, is people spending too long on a novel and it gets really boring and stale.
Do we need to read each chapter out loud?
In regards to reading a chapter out loud, the option of being read to should be there. So no, I would not read every chapter out loud to the entire class, but I think there's a lot of benefits for allowing a small group of students to have the book read to them, while other students, especially in later chapters, other students have the option of reading independently or reading with a group. I have tons of blog posts about all kinds of different activities you can do instead of just reading it. It's too big of a question to answer in just one little quick Q&A with that.
How do you assess or wrap up a novel unit? Do you do a test? Do you do some sort of project? What do you recommend? And do you have any resources that you can share with us, specifically when talking about ideas for projects?
And that really depends on your goals. When I was using standard-based grading and we were grading on the different modes of communication, my go-to at the end of a novel was to have both a speaking assessment, interpersonal speaking, and then a presentational writing assessment over the book. I don't recommend a standard test. If you're looking for proficiency and how students are doing, I think, assessing a specific skill does a better job of that. In my experience, projects usually just take up a lot of time, take up a lot of class time.
How do you differentiate for various levels when working with a reader in class?
I love doing reading groups. I've done a variety of different reading groups, one of them being like reading clubs. I got this idea from Carrie Toth of having 3 different groups for the duration of the novel. So the independent group who did things on their own, the cooperative group who did more collaborative activities, and the alpha group who was with me, the group who needed the most support, who wanted the most support. I read to them, we did activities, and I think that really works well, especially doing that as a later way of reading a novel after you've already read one as a class, where more of the activities are as group-based. There's tons of different ways to differentiate whether you're using the same book or that your differentiation is the fact that there are different groups of students, more of like literature circles, reading different books at the same time.
How do you incorporate culture while teaching a novel?
incorporating culture, I think the biggest thing is picking a novel that centers on culture. I would highly suggest picking a novel that is set in, for example, Spanish class, set in a Spanish-speaking country that has a lot of deep ties to culture and other themes. That makes incorporating culture very natural. I would not choose a book that is not centered on culture or has a positive representation of the Spanish-speaking world.
Do you have any tips for working with readers on a block? Like both, how do I handle it's a really long class period and keeping them engaged, but then also there's kind of a longer period of time between class periods when I'm working on a block schedule. So how do I know that my students are going to remember what we did before and remember what's going on in the story when we come back to it after, such a long time between class periods?
I have taught on a block schedule, and with those longer class periods, I really think that comes down to mixing it up, doing a variety of different activities. On a block period, when I had 100-minute blocks, I'm pretty sure we read a book in a week.
How do you balance your budget between getting sets of readers and getting individual copies of books for FVR reading in your classroom library?
I think that really depends on what your goals are, what your goals of your department and your classes. If I only had a certain budget, I would start with free reading library because in my classes, we started with free reading every Tuesday and Thursday at the start of class. So you're getting that throughout as opposed to a reader where maybe you're only using that for a short period of time. But I highly do recommend investing in both if the funds are there.
Where can we connect with you and learn more about how to use novels in our classes? Do you have any recommendations for resources or websites or maybe blog posts that you've written that you could share with us for more support?
So to connect with me, you can find me at Mis Clases Locas or misclaseslocas.com, where I have 80 plus posts about teaching with readers' novels, from posts about specific books, planning for those books, as well as activities for any of them, assessment, reading club, literature circles, all kinds of things. Thank you. And if you have any questions about using books, feel free to reach out. Mis Clases Locas. Thank you.
Thanks so much to Allison for sharing her expertise with us, and make sure to check out her website for more and all of the resources that she mentioned. One of the most frequently asked questions that I have seen when talking about doing novels in classes is what to do with the reading. So I just thought that I would add my playlist here of activities that you can do with any reading, because you could do them with a chapter, you could do them with a selection that you've pulled out of a reading. All right, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.